As you guys can see, AMC stock ballooned towards a late day trading. Let's get into what's going on here with some of the data. If any of the data could tell us why this happened. Let's get into it. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Source your comments, questions, or concerns down below in the comment section. Let me know what you think caused this move. AMC stock was up like 2% in the video that was posted at 2 p.m. today, 2:30 p.m. today. It was up like 2%. AMC stock seen some vicious candles to the upside. Let me know what you think caused this. There's going to be a lot of speculation, a lot of potential rumors out there. I think we do get news on this, but as of right now, there's nothing. So I'll keep you guys posted if something does come out. I'm sure some point tonight we'll get some definitive news. So first things first, I want to start with some of the Ortex data. Now, actually, before we get into that, let's take a look at some of the option flows. Now, usually with AMC, if there is a weird spike, there's usually some bit of news. But sometimes the options can tell you something as well. Sometimes around key expirations, key strikes, there can be a lot of option activity, a lot of hedging. Now, I will also reiterate the same thing that I have said in other videos. Now, I haven't said this in recent videos, but last week I was saying this quite often. And I think it still is applicable and is still true today. When you invest in any stock, let's just take this to the basics. When you are investing in anything, what is the first thing that you do? Before you invest in that company, as you're looking at the balance sheet, what's the one question that is in your mind? At least, hopefully, the one question that is in your mind. What is my potential profit? What is my potential loss? Like a best case, base case, worst case scenario. What do I think could happen with this stock? No matter what stock you invest in, if you're buying a stock for the long term or you're buying a trade, you should always think, what is my best case? What is my worst case? What do I expect to happen? And then build your thesis off of that. If X happens, this is my worst case. If X happens, this is my best case. If nothing happens or this happens and that happens, what's my base case? So long story short, if you're a short in AMC stock right now, what's your best case scenario? Probably $3 or $4 per share. I doubt AMC stock could go any lower than that. And you say it could go lower, or you doubt it could. Well, anything can happen. Obviously, that's like a base case. That's a worst case. That's not the ultimate worst case, which is always bankruptcy, right? That's always your worst case, is your investment goes to zero. But what are the odds a Walmart goes to zero? What are the odds that a Tesla goes to zero? What are the odds that QQQ goes to zero? It's unrealistic. It's not going to happen. What are the odds AMC goes to zero? It's unrealistic. It's not going to happen, at least anytime soon. Something would really have to go wrong to see AMC stock go to zero anytime soon. Okay, so that's unrealistic. So $3, $4 per share, I think that's a very reasonable worst case scenario. AMC stock is, after this rally today, $8.33. Before this rally was around $8 per share. So what, your downside's $4 or $5? That's the best you can get if you're a short? What is your worst case scenario if you're a short? AMC stock could reach $20, $30, $40, $50 to $300 per share. Higher than that. It's unlimited. So on a pure risk to reward analysis, it is very much skewed towards a bad investment being short in AMC stock. There's a much greater chance you make money in AMC stock in 2024 being long. So I think that is something, a factor, that as long as we're $8 per share, anything under like $15 per share, your risk reward looks very bad being short, period. Even at $15 per share. What, if you're 15, then your odds of falling back to 10? Sure, okay, but you still have a chance of going to 30, 40, 50 plus. Hopefully you guys get my point here. The risk to reward just looks very unfavorable to be negatively positioned, to be short in AMC stock. I think that's something we all could agree with. Even the bears could likely agree with that. At $8 per share, you probably don't want to be short in AMC in 2024. With that being said, you have seen a flip. You've seen a change. What is this change? Look at the option activity today. You have options total volume of today, 167,000. Call volume, 107,440 options. Puts volume, 59,750 options. So you had basically a 2-to-1 ratio today for calls versus puts. So a lot of people are stepping in and buying calls here. Now the $8 call is really neck and neck. You have, or today I should say, you had at the $8 call, 19,000 for activity today, and almost 19,000 for volume as well on the put side. So it is neck and neck there. The 850 calls, different story. 21,000 for volume today, and less than 3,000 for volume at the 850 put. The 750 call, 4,000 for volume. The 750 put, 17,000 for volume. So the calls are definitely winning here by a long shot. If you take a look at the Stocko tracker data as well, you did see a lot of options go into the money in the last, really above the $8 call. So from like 2:30 until the close, a lot of options did go into the money. Now, if you look here, calls in the money expiring this Friday, you had about 9,000 in the video that was put out earlier. Now you're at over 23,000. So that net is over 1 million shares potentially that needed to be hedged for. Now, we usually don't see that instant hedging. So if we don't have any news that caused this, jump in AMC stock, it could maybe be explained by the volume and the option activity. So if you take a look at this 30-minute candle, you had volume of about 4.4 million. Now, some of this volume is obviously individual investors, hedge funds, like trading the stock, right? But I think you can appropriately discount some of that. So what I mean by that is if you had 4.4 million for volume in this 30-minute candle, then I think it's safe to say 1 million, 1.5 million of that could have been market makers going out and hedging for those $8 puts or $8 calls, and subsequently $8 puts that went out of the money as well. So at the $8 call, you had 13,572. At the $8 put, you had 13,643. All in all, this could be about 2.6 million in attributable volume to this 30-minute candle that we've seen right here. But again, usually we don't see instantaneous hedging. The only time we see instantaneous hedging is if markets are going to keep AMC in a bullish state, meaning that if AMC is not going back under $8 per share by the end of this week, then you will see instantaneous hedging, because market makers, if they just plan to push down AMC stock under $8 per share, then a lot of the times you won't see a big volume spike. You won't see the options get instantly hedged for. If the stock's going to fall to 750 tomorrow, why would they do that, right? They don't do that all of the time. So when they do this, when they do instantly hedge these options in a big degree in which it looks like they did today, usually that either means the stock's at least going to hold up throughout the week, or potentially even trade higher throughout the week. Now, let's take a look at the option chain again. So at the $9 call, you have 11,000 for open interest. At the $9 put, you have 1,000 for open interest. Now, the puts at the 850, you have 3,300. At the 9, like I said, you have 1,000. But other than that, it basically drops off. So, okay, that scared the crap out of me. The TV just turned on literally out of nowhere. Sheesh, dude. Oh my gosh. Anyways, you don't have a lot of option activity deep in the money for the puts. Now, on the call side, like I said, 19,000 for open interest at the 850. That is a big one. If you can break above 850, that could send you into a full-blown gamma squeeze. Then you have 11,000 at the $9 call, 5,000 at the 950, 10,000 at the $10 call, and then you kind of drop off in between 2,000, 3,000, and 1,000 for open interest after the $10 call. So a move to $10 per share actually over the next 2 trading days leading into this Friday would make sense to me. Again, based on the option activity that we're seeing, based on the overall poor risk to reward ratio, and just the sheer amount of calls that you're seeing now on AMC stock. What you kind of seen over the last 9 months or so is like a 3 to 4 to 1 ratio for puts to calls, meaning that if you had like 100,000 puts expiring on any given expiration, you would see like 25,000 calls. There was a lot of downside option activity, downside kind of synthetic shorting pressure, as I like to say, and you're not seeing that anymore. Now, I've talked about this rally coming now for a couple of days, and again, incorporating everything we've talked about here in this video, I've also pointed out the put-to-call ratio. So, obviously, back here in June of 2021, you had a huge rally, a 10x rally, right? Put-to-call ratio hit a high of 1. The stock came down. But after that, you've seen multi-100+% rallies. Back here in September of 2021. Back here to a lesser extent in November of 2021. To a large degree in April of 2022. March and April of 2022. And the last one that we did see was back here in August of 2022. After that, you've seen, 50% rallies here and there, but you haven't really seen like hundreds of percents of rallies. And that was, I believe, partially due to the put-to-call ratio increasing so much. So for every dollar that AMC stock moves, there was a lot more puts going into the money than calls going into the money. So when you see a lot of that outsized kind of put activity for so long, it's really hard to hold a rally, and it's hard to even hold gains. So that's what we've seen. The put-to-call ratio was literally 2 to 1. Hit a high here of 1.82 for the put-to-call ratio. If you've seen those levels on like the NASDAQ or the S&P, like you would be in full-blown crash territory, right? You didn't even see those levels in 2022, period. So AMC stock was heavily positioned for a downside move. This was obviously hedge funds and institutions that were doing this. So the put-to-call ratio falling does open the door for a potential multi-100% move. And obviously, I believe to the upside. Now, let's take a look at some of the other numbers we've seen today as well. You had borrowed shares of 2.64 million, return shares of 1.01 million. So it doesn't really look like you've seen any kind of outsized returned amount of shares today. It actually looks like there was more shorted shares today than return shares, which is interesting. Yesterday, you've seen the same thing. Yesterday, you had like 1.4 million return shares and borrowed shares of almost 5 million. So borrow change today of 1.6 million net shares sold short. That's interesting. So it doesn't look like you've seen any boost or any positive effect from shares actually being returned. Quite the opposite. Looks like more shares were borrowed, subsequently sold short today than were actually returned. Now, if you look at the live short interest of free float, we talked about this in the last video as well. It looks like these shorts are increasing their positions. You do have 24.65 million shares that are estimated sold short. That is up 216, almost 217,000 from yesterday's number. And the short interest of free float at 12.46%, up 2.57% from yesterday's numbers as well. The dollar amount sold short in AMC stock rising, steadily, right? Is starting to see some increase here as AMC stock is starting to make its way to the upside as well. $188.63 million worth of short positions currently in AMC stock. Free flow out on loan, 16.23%. Shares out on loan. This is something that is interesting. You're starting to get a big jump here. 1 week ago, you had 26.36 million shares that were out on loan. Now you have 32.22 million shares out on loan. Days to cover at 2.16. Cost to borrow 2.54, and utilization of 63.79%. So very interesting numbers for sure that you are seeing over here, but nothing that is really definitive of why AMC stock took this big move higher during the day today. So pretty interesting. Cost to borrow fees. Cost to borrow average 1.88%. Cost to borrow max 8.6%. Cost to borrow minimum negative. That's obviously not true. Now that we are getting a little bit of upside volatility, it would not surprise me if we do continue to see cost to borrow fees start to make their way to the upside. Now, as far as AMC stock on the charts, you're above your 8-day moving average. That is great. The RSI at 33.72, getting away from that oversold level. That is great as well. The MACD has been positive for a while. It's getting even more positive. That is also great. I mean, you're still quite negative. You're still negative on the MACD line of negative 3.14, on the signal line negative 4.17. So you're still pretty negative, but you're starting to make your way closer to positive. I think if the MACD can actually get positive, if we can string together a couple of green days, then you start to actually get into potentially that multi-100% rally. Now, a multi-100% rally from here sounds better than what it actually is on a price action basis. 100% from here is going to put you at about $17 per share. 200% from here is going to put you at about $25 per share. 300% would put you in the $300 range. So that's kind of what I think is possible here. Just even think about this logically. When a stock gets this oversold, to see a bounce back 100 to 300%, is not that uncommon, right? By any stretch of the imagination. Like I said, you're above your 8-day moving average. That is great. Your 50-day moving average is at $21.40. Your 100-day moving average coincidentally coincides almost exactly with the 300% potential gain at $31.09, and your 200-day moving average at $38.55 per share. Now, again, not all things are just great out there. Bonds did react well today. TLT up 1.41%. That was great. The dollar down about 0.2%. That is also positive. But if you look at your banks, guys, I'm not going to be bullish or excited on this market until we see the banks really start to do well. Bank of America did actually end the day a little bit green. In after hours, you're giving all of that away plus some. It was down about 1% at one point today. You're still hanging out close to, well, actually, technically under your banking crisis levels, right? Back here during the banking crisis, Bank of America was around $26. $26.30. You're at $25.94. Like, that's not great. Citi is, again, under its banking crisis lows. Your banking crisis low was about $41.05. Citi is at $39.81. JP Morgan's doing a little bit better. Wells Fargo doing a little bit better. But some of your big banks here just look utterly disgusting. And until they really catch a bounce here, the banking crisis could still be developing and could be about to get a lot worse. So that's something I'm not very excited about. The yield curve is also continuing to uninvert. This typically only happens right before you go into a recession on the 10 and the 2-year and on the 10 and the 3-month. All of them not looking great. I would say a lot of this bullish rally today did have to do with oil. Oil did fall by about 5.5% today. Nothing really happened. Saudi Arabia came out and said they're not going to do any further production cuts, whereas some people were maybe expecting they would. Some people were front-running that, just giving some of the recent gain back. And this is great, obviously, in terms of inflation. Oil falling is never going to be a bad thing for your inflation outlook. But I don't know if this is enough to just make the recent fall or crash, whatever you want to call it, just disappear. the banks still are like under their SVB, under their banking crisis lows. There's no way you can spin that to make that a positive thing, in my mind. So be on the lookout for that. I don't think this situation is over as far as this market crash or market reset. We do have a little bit of economic data tomorrow, nothing too crazy. We do have some Fed speakers, but again, nothing that's probably going to move the markets all too much. The move down in after hours right now is red. You're not continuing this rally, at least right now here in after hours, but we'll see what does ultimately happen, guys. So let me know what you think about this move here with AMC stock. What caused this? Do you think it's going to continue? How much do you think we could rally? Let me know all of that information down below in the comment section. If you guys would like to come trade with us live in real time, link down below in the description of this video. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.